Hey guys, I'm in the very same parking lot right now where God encountered my life. It's like 8 years ago in 2010, one of the most significant moments of my entire life. And yeah, it's this parking lot in the middle of nowhere, with like no one around. For those of you who know me, have shared this story with, you've heard it before, but I've never really made a video sharing it. So here goes. So I grew up Amish, only a few miles from this parking lot, and grew up a very normal life. I lived a very full life, and then at the age of 16, you get to go and do some different things that you don't really get to do growing up, and I was looking for life in all the wrong places. I was looking for life in parties and in, trying to have the right friends, the right activities around and all that stuff. And as many of you know, that generally is so lifeless. But even through that, God spared me from really screwing up so many things. But internally is where my battle was. It was like internally I was this depressed kid. I could put up a good front, but internally I was lost. I was depressed. And I didn't know how to fix that. And summer of 2010, it was just getting worse and worse. I would be more and more depressed, more hopeless, didn't know what my life was about and all that. And I was so depressed, and I remember even having suicidal thoughts of if I wasn't here, would anyone miss me, and that kind of thing. And so I was hopeless, to say the least. And this one evening, July 20th, 2010, I left a softball practice completely pissed off at someone. I don't even remember what for or why. So I left the practice early and drove to this parking lot, and I sat in my car for a little while, and in the back of my mind, this story came to me that a friend of mine had shared, of a testimony of what God had done and how God had made himself real in his life, right? And so in the back of my mind, that story comes to me, and I'm thinking, man, I don't really want to live anymore, but what if God is real? And so just very simply said, God, I've made a mess of my life, but if you're real, I want to know. In a single moment, he came, his presence, I felt his presence for the first time. He just flooded my car with his presence. He gave me a new heart. I knew I could never be the same. I heard his voice, and I just for the first time in my life, I felt this peace. There was no more depression, no more anxiety. In fact, I felt like I had a new heart with joy and life. And yeah, it's just, seriously guys, he just wrecked me in such a real and powerful way that night. And guys, another thing that made it so real to me that night was the couple weeks leading up to that, I had trouble with my eyes. They would hurt halfway through the day. Whether I was at work or whatever, they would just be tired and hurting and stuff, and I was going to go get them checked out, right? But God touched my eyes that night. Never since that night did I have that kind of problem. I don't know how bad my eyes were, because I hadn't been to an eye doctor before that, but they were bad, because I remember the next time I played ball, I could see clearly. I was from the outfield, I was oh my gosh, how is this? I can actually see. What was life, And you gotta realize, I grew up Amish. There was no context for supernatural healing and for the right now and all that. So it blew my mind. It just made it so real. And yeah, healing is, for today, but that's not what this story is about. The other thing that was so amazing to me is he took this guy that was lifeless and depressed and gave him life. But the kind of people he started to put in my life just blew me away. I didn't deserve it. And, since then I've gotten to go on so many different places, see so many different parts of the world. And to think that I grew up not even expecting to ever board an airplane. I grew up Amish, and so you never even expect to board an airplane. And now I've been to over 9 different mission trips that were just totally mind-blowing. and several different countries and stuff like that, and it's just been absolutely the wildest ride. So all I'm saying, guys, is God doesn't have like one way that he reaches people, but that night in 2010, he just like, he was he was pursuing me. I don't know how else to describe it, but he was pursuing me, and I finally came to that intersection when I was at the end of myself. I was like, I don't know how, I'm lifeless and depressed, and I don't know what else, but he met me right where I was, right here in this parking lot. Wherever you are right now, I hope this gives you life. I hope this gives you encouragement, and yeah, I'm just blown away. God's so good.